Welcome back everyone for another week of BP Kids Online. We're so glad that you're able to join us this weekend. Hopefully you've been able to tune in over the last couple of weeks as we've been starting our new series called Epic. Last week we talked about how we can spend time with God anywhere. Doesn't matter where we are, we can spend time with Him. We talked about the Israelites in the wilderness and how God made a way for them to talk to Him by building the tabernacle. And they brought it with them everywhere that they went as they traveled to the Promised Land. This week, we're talking about how we can trust God. No matter where we are, or no matter what we might go through, we can trust Him in every situation. The Israelites were wandering through the wilderness, and they had to trust God in a lot of scenarios. So we're going to talk more about that today in our Bible story. Last week, we talked about how I can spend time with God anywhere. Even while the Israelites and Moses were in the wilderness on their way to the Promised Land, they were able to spend time with God. God made a way for them to spend time with Him by building a tabernacle, or a tent of meeting, where they could worship God. God made a way for them to worship Him, but they also had to learn that they could trust Him, even when things were really difficult. This week, we're talking about how I can trust God. While the Israelites were in the wilderness, they had a lot of things happening. They were hungry sometimes, they were thirsty sometimes, but God always made a way for them to eat or to drink, and made a way for them through the wilderness. Moses was leading the Israelites through the wilderness, on their way to the Promised Land. They were so excited to finally get there, but while they were going through the wilderness, things were really difficult and sometimes they would complain. But finally, when they reached the Promised Land, Moses had a plan. The journey was finally over, and the Israelites had reached the edge of the Promised Land. When Moses and the Israelites were finally there, Moses had a plan. Moses decided that they would send in some spies. Moses sent in 12 spies to check out the Promised Land. Each of them came from one of the 12 tribes of Israel. 2 of the spies were named Joshua and Caleb. When all 12 spies went into the Promised Land, they found many, many great things. They were excited to see that the land was flowing with milk and honey, and they knew that it was a good land. The scary thing, however, was that there were also giants. When the spies returned, they gave a bad report. 10 of the spies gave a bad report to Moses. They gave a bad report to Moses, saying, "We're afraid. There's giants in the land. We surely can't take this land." Joshua and Caleb, however, said that the land was good. They knew that no matter what happened, that since it was a land God had promised them, that they could trust God and that God would give them the land. The 10 spies, however, spread a bad report to all of the Israelites, and so then everyone became afraid. Joshua and Caleb were still confident that they could take the land and that God would be with them. But because everyone else was too afraid, then God sent them back to the wilderness for 40 years. And He said that Joshua and Caleb would be the ones to lead the Israelites into the Promised Land after 40 more years of wandering in the wilderness. Even though God promised the Israelites the Promised Land, they still doubted that they would be able to have it. When they went in there, the spies, and they saw the giants, they became afraid and they spread a bad report to the whole group. Joshua and Caleb were the only ones out of the whole group that actually trusted God, and they trusted that that was the land God had promised them, so of course they would be able to take it. Have you ever been in a situation where you've had to trust God, or maybe you haven't trusted God, even though He's promised something to you? When we talk about trusting God, it doesn't matter what we might go through in life. We can remember that we can trust God in everything that we might go through, because He does take care of us, provide for us, and make a way for us no matter what. Well, we're so glad that you're able to join us this week for another week of BP Kids Online. We have a lot of exciting things coming up in the next couple of weeks with day camps and Canada Day and that kind of thing, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and we'll see you next time.